The following program was paid for by the friends and partners of Neil Thomas Ministries.
Continuing with our theme on the book of Acts, and I'd like to have a look at Acts chapter 27. It's here in the Bible. It was reported, and the Holy Spirit saw to it that it's in the Scriptures, and here we are reading it 2,000 years later. And maybe you're listening to me today and think, well, why should we believe what it says? It's been written for many years. There's no one questioning the stories that we're reading in here. They've been witnessed by many people. And if you watch the movie, I think it was On the Cause for Christ, there's more evidence in writings to support the Bible than any other writings. And we teach in university writings and quotes and history facts based on less support than what the Bible has. Yet people will walk around and say, why should I believe the Bible? Someone just wrote it. Well, someone just wrote everything that we read from history. But why take note of something that's in history? And the evidence is that there's, piles of evidence to support the scriptures that we're reading. And it's been passed down to us, written by those that witnessed it, a record written by Luke of what took place, and the reports of the stories that took place. And Acts 27-28 is getting towards the end of the book of Acts. Acts 28 is the last chapter, and it's a story from there. So we're now years into the early church. We're years into the life of these early apostles. And what's happened in 27 is Paul has actually been arrested and he's being sent to Rome for trial. He sees it as a fulfillment of God's word to him that he'll go to Rome and give an account for the scriptures, give an account for Jesus Christ, and be able to be a witness in Rome. Something that the Holy Spirit had said to him would happen, and he's quite determined that that's to take place. He is concerned that they're going on a ship, that they're not going to survive the trip. And he says in verse 10 of Acts 27, "Men, I perceive that this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and the ship, but also our lives. But nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and the owner of the ship than by the things spoken by Paul." They said, no, it'll be a safe trip. Paul said, I've got a word for you. We're not going to make it. They ignored Paul's word, and they did end up in a really disastrous storm, a life-threatening storm. They were out at sea by the stage. They were throwing off cargo. They were throwing off anchors. And we pick up in Acts 27, verse 21. It says, "But after long abstinence from food," so they've been on the ship, they haven't been eating, "Paul stood in the middle of them, in the middle of the storm, and said, 'Men, you should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. But now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of the Lord, an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve. And the angel said, Do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar, and indeed God has granted you all those who sail with you. Therefore take heart, men, for I believe that God will be I believe God that it will be just as it was told me. However, we must run aground on a certain island.'" So Paul said he had a visit from an angel that said to him, "I've heard your prayers. No one's going to die. Although it's a disaster for the cargo, it's a disaster for the ship. You will all survive." And we pick up in verse 39. And I'm going to read into verse 28. "When it was day, they did not recognize the land, but they observed a bay with a beach onto which they planned to run the ship if possible. They let go the anchors and left them in the sea, meanwhile losing the rudder ropes, and they hoisted the mainsail to the wind and made for shore. But striking a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the prow stuck fast and remained immovable. But the stern was being broken up by the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that those who could swim should jump overboard first and get to land, and the rest, some on boards and some on parts of the ship. And so it was that they all escaped safely to land. Now when they had escaped, they then found out that the island was called Malta." Hi to all the Maltese. "And the natives were friendly." That's good, isn't it? "And the natives showed us unusual kindness, for they kindled a fire and made us all welcome because of the rain that was falling and because of the cold. But when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, a viper came out because of the heat and fastened on his hand. So when the natives saw the creature hanging from his hand, they said to one another, 'No doubt this man was a murderer, whom though he has escaped the sea, yet justice does not allow him to live.' But he shook off the creature into the fire and suffered no harm. However, they were expecting that he would swell up or suddenly fall down dead. But after they had looked for a long time and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. In that region there was an estate of the leading citizen of the land whose name was Publius, who received us and entertained us courteously for 3 days. And it happened that the father of Publius lay sick of a fever and dysentery. Paul went in to him and prayed, and he laid his hands on him and he healed him. So when this was done, the rest of those on the island who had diseases also came and were healed. Hallelujah. So to the Maltese, there's the gospel coming to Malta. Praise God. With signs and wonders and healing. What's amazing about this story is that this is exactly what Jesus said. He actually prophesied that his disciples, or those who would believe in him, it says, a serpent will bite you and you will come to no harm. And you kind of think, well, when would that happen? Why would that happen? Why did the Lord feel he needed to say that? As a result of that scripture, you will find some pretty wild churches, particularly in Africa, where they bring out serpents and they get bitten by serpents and say, look, and I'm full of the Holy Spirit because the serpent has bit me and nothing has happened to me. It's pretty scary. You sort of wonder what spirit's at that church, what's that about? But they quote that verse of Jesus. But here's actually the words of Jesus being fulfilled. That even if a serpent bites you, even whatever attacks you, I mean, I guess he couldn't have said anything much worse. If a snake bites you and the poison enters you, you pretty much were going to die. And in the case of this one, the natives themselves, and I think that's the point of the story, believed once this sort of viper had bitten you, that was it. You was definitely going to die. But this viper bites Paul and nothing happens. He has no harm. They were expecting, verse 6 says, that he would swell up or suddenly fall down dead. But after they had looked for a long time and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds about him, started to say he was a god. He was totally unaffected by this bite of the viper. If you go to the actual words of Jesus that I was mentioning, and they're in Mark chapter 16. This is just before Jesus returned to heaven. After his resurrection, he's walking around in his resurrected body. Verse 14 of Mark 16 says, Later he appeared to the 11 as they sat at the table, and he rebuked their unbelief and hardness of heart because they did not believe those who had seen him after he had risen. And he said to them, Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved. He who does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they'll cast out demons. They will speak with new tongues. They will take up serpents. And if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. Amen. Jesus said, serpents will bite them, but nothing will happen. They'll take up serpents and they might even drink poison, but nothing will happen. They won't be harmed. What did Paul do? He just shook it off. This is exactly what Jesus prophesied happened to Paul. This is his expectations. This is what Jesus expected to happen for who? Those who believe. Those who believe. Those who believe, he says, these signs will follow those who believe. These signs. What's a sign? Well, it points, doesn't it? It points you in a certain direction. These are signs of what? Signs of the truth of Jesus. Signs of the power of his name. Signs of the truth of the gospel. But not just a sign to sort of go, there it is, sign that points you. This is the way to go. These are signs to point people. This is the way to go. And he said, these are the signs that will follow those who believe in my name. That word there, believe, means trust and follow me. Those who trust me. Those who truly trust me. And I think that's a real key to even experiencing these signs in our own life. We've actually got to trust him. Paul trusted him. Paul trusted the dream that he had, the warning that he had not to go on the boat enough to tell the men much more experienced than him, don't go. He trusted God that spoke to him to tell in the middle of a storm where they pretty much thought they were dying and they were throwing everything overboard, we won't die. Just run the boat ashore on an island. We're going to find an island, we're going to have to run the boat ashore. He was confident enough, he trusted enough that he could hear the word of God, that he could actually take the responsibility for all those people's lives in his hands. And it happened correctly. He trusted God enough that he could shake off that viper and it wouldn't affect him. It bit him, it poisoned him, but it didn't affect him because he was able to shake it off. He trusted, he believed. He believed. And I want to challenge us this morning, I guess, about what we really believe. And to go further with what we believe, and to step deeper with what we believe. And even as we heard this morning in the interpretation about this, that God has come, sent Christ to restore us to that Eden. The Bible says Jesus came to undo the works of the devil, and the first work of the devil was to separate us from God and to take us from that very place of blessing from God. And God wants to restore that in our lives. He says, in the world you'll have trouble, but I've overcome the world. And while you're here, I've overcome it. He does tell us that. He definitely tells us that he has overcome the world, and in him we can overcome the world. In him we can expect this type of signs to follow us if we will believe. And sometimes we think, well, it's up to God whether those signs follow us. But I would suggest those who believe it's up to us for those signs to follow us. We need to trust him. And again, I want to say, Paul, this wasn't every day. Paul was days and weeks on this ship. I mean, Paul didn't walk around with a halo in his head and float around. He was picking up wood to go and build a fire. He didn't just say, abracadabra, wood come, fire appear, I don't ever have to do anything. He wasn't a magic man. But he could trust God and God's word to him and trust when God told him and spoke to him. But he wasn't. He built tents, this man. He worked sometimes for his money. It wasn't that he didn't live normal life. And here he was picking up wood to put on the fire, to build a fire. He got out there with the others. He didn't sit back and say, I don't need, God will just carry the wood and the fire will just appear. So we're not talking about like testing God or being some sort of magical people and not living normal everyday life and having to get up and do everyday life. But as we do everyday life, these signs will follow those who believe. These signs will follow those who believe as the challenges of everyday life come. And Paul wasn't even present when Jesus said those words. I guess he'd heard those words. He may have heard what was written by Mark, what Peter would have told Mark, we believe. No doubt he'd heard that Jesus had said those things. Was he even aware of the seriousness of the animal that bit him? Or was he just so convinced that he was going to Rome because the angel had said, you are going to Rome? He says, it doesn't matter who bites me, I'm going to Rome. I'm definitely getting there. So it doesn't matter what comes against me, it's not going to kill me because I've got to get there. I take God's word to me. And sometimes we even have God's word to us. Sometimes people will tell me God's promise to them and then be in panic when something comes to threaten that promise. But if God said it, then why are we worrying? Of course, it's challenging to us, but why are we letting that voice overcome us? Why are we heeding that? James says to us, be careful. He says that the man who doubts, he won't receive. The guy that's tossed all about, he won't receive. Now, this is a challenge for all of us, and I don't say it to condemn. I say it to say, don't accept that. Let's stand up against that. Let's say, no, I'm going to believe. I'm going to be one of those who believe that signs follow. Because again, that's what our country needs. That's what your neighbours need. That's what your family needs. They need signs that will follow. Now, there'll always be those that will reject even if the signs do follow. We read last Sunday night, the Pharisees tried to shut the signs down. They tried to shut the signs down by killing off the disciples. But even that didn't take place when the people began to pray. They couldn't even kill the ones that they wanted to kill, to shut the disciples down. These are the signs that follow those who believe, those who trust, those who take action. They'll be unaffected by the attacks. They'll be able to shake it off. They'll be able to just shake it off. And so I guess I ask you this morning, if you're a believer, you know what? We should be able to shake it off. If we're a believer, we should be able to just shake that thing off. What's bitten you? What's bitten you? Has divorce bitten you? You know what? You can shake it off. You can actually shake it off. It's got poison. There's no doubt about it. And we can sit and do a behavioural analysis and a psychological analysis on what divorce does. But you're going to shake it off, or you're going to let that poison. It's poisonous. There's no question of it. And children involved will suffer if they don't shake it off. They'll suffer if they don't shake it off. But they've got to shake it off. And in Jesus Christ, we have the power to shake it off and be unaffected by the bite of divorce. By the bite of what? Financial trouble. By the bite of fear. Disappointment. You've been disappointed and you let the poison of disappointment bite into you, it'll kill you. It will kill you. Some of us ask years later, what happened to that powerful preacher? What happened to that missionary? What happened to that person? I tell you, most of the time, disappointment. They didn't get what they expected, and the poison of that has taken them away. The ideas in our head, or whatever we think should be. Jesus didn't say the vipers won't bite them, did he? He didn't say the snakes won't bite them. He didn't say the poison won't be delivered to them. He actually said it will unaffect them. He told us the attacks are going to come. He just said it won't affect you. Those attacks that come against you, those things that bite you, they won't affect you. I was thinking about, even further from the message I shared on Sunday night, how Peter was delivered from the prison and from death. You know, Stephen had been killed, James had been killed, but Peter was put in the prison for the same intention, to take him out the next day and kill him, but the angels delivered him and set him free. You know, Jesus did tell them, he did say to the disciples, some of you will die for the sake of the gospel. He did say, some of you will, your life will end as a result of the sake of the gospel. But as we had a look, when it came time they wanted to get Peter, the people began to pray, and the prayers of the people thwarted the plans to take Peter's life. But eventually Peter did die for the sake of the gospel. Paul eventually did lose his life in prison for the sake of the gospel. But he was told, not now, Paul. You are going to Rome. Not now. Not going to happen till it's the time. It's not going to happen now. We all live in a body that is temporary. We all live in a body that is going to die. But sometimes our fear and our inability to believe is the fear of that very ending. But you know what? That ending doesn't come until it's time. That ending's not going to come until it's time if you trust and follow. And that so often will be the sign. It wasn't Paul's time, and the sign was he didn't die. Because it just was not his time. And so the Lord protected him and the Lord kept him. You know, what's biting you? What's bitten you? What's your reason for not being able to do the signs and wonders? What's your reason for not being able to believe? For maybe not seeing it in your own life? Or what excuse do we make? What's poisoned us? What's poisoned us? What storm has come? Paul said, this storm is not going to stop me from getting to Rome. It's going to do some damage, but it's not going to stop me from getting to Rome. And how good is Paul? He prayed that the Lord would spare the life of everyone else on the ship. And the angel said, and God has granted what you've asked. No one else will die. Now, a lot of those people on the ship were soldiers that were arresting him. They were kind of his enemies, fellow prisoners, who'd no doubt done some real genuine crimes. But Paul asked for their lives, and I love it the way the angel says, God's granted your request, no one will die. I mean, how a ship would break up and they'd all fall in the sea, but everybody made it to shore on a plank. Some of them could swim, some of them hanging on to planks. It would make a really good movie. But they all made it because Paul asked. Because Paul asked. Sometimes we're even afraid to ask, yes? These signs will follow them because you'll be able to ask and God will grant you that sign. God will grant what you ask. You think, you know what? Paul might have been saved and some of them might have died if Paul didn't ask. If Paul didn't put that request in his prayer. He said, the angels told me that he's going to grant me what I've asked. I'm going to grant you, Paul, the lives of these men. Grant you. That means I'm going to give it to you because obviously you asked for it. It's a gift I'm giving to you. So Paul asked for their lives, and if he hadn't asked for their lives, they might not have had their lives. You know, some people's, their lives won't be spared. Their experience of God won't be real. Things won't happen because you and I are being overwhelmed by the poison or by the fear or by the storm and not stepping out and asking. You know, people actually dependent on you and me to believe. Some people's healing, some people's getting through the storm, some people's reaction, their overcoming is relying on you and me to believe. It's needing us to believe, and it will deliver, it will save. I still maintain Peter was delivered from the prison, the same murderer, the one that had killed James, his fellow disciple, only days before, had lined him up to kill him, but it was the prayers of the people that delivered him. It was the prayers of the people that delivered him. Signs following those who believe. Signs following those who believe. I'll read it again. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons. They will speak with new tongues. They will take up serpents. And if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. For they will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. Hallelujah. People being healed, people recovering. And we see that happen with Paul. So after this, he prays. They end up being hosted by some very kind Maltese man in his estate for 3 days. This whole group off the boat. He takes them in. He cares for them. That was the days when you weren't afraid of some stranger on the street, what he might do to you. You took strangers in, no? So this man takes in all these strangers, and they are ex-prisoners, and he cares for them. And his father is sick, and Paul heals his father, and then people come from all over the island of Malta to receive healing. Praise God. What the devil used a storm to try to destroy this man and not let him get to Rome, and to undo God's word, ended up in, it seems like, hundreds encountering, an entire island, an entire nation having its first encounter with the gospel, because he believed and those signs followed him. The greatest sign of all, of course, is that we love one another. Jesus said in John 13:34-35, "Love one another as I have loved you, and by this all men will know that you are my disciple." That's the greatest sign. That's the number one sign. And we see that in the book of Acts amongst the people, the way they cared for each other, they loved for each other, no one considered anything to be his own. They genuinely loved one another as if everybody was their family. As if everybody was their family. There wasn't a closer blood bond than there was a spirit bond, but everybody loved and cared for each other as if everybody was their family. That's the greatest sign. That's the sign that will follow those who believe. Jesus said, if you love one another as I've loved you, then men and women will know that you are my disciples. That's definitely the number one sign that he's looking for. And we see that in the book of Acts. We see that in Paul's praying for the people on the boat to be saved. He showed the love of God to them. He loved them, his commitment to them. We see it in the way the churches gave and cared for one another. We see Paul expecting that from one church, to reach into their pocket and help another group when they're in need. That love that they have for each other, that care for each other. 1 Corinthians 13 talks about faith, hope and love. Faith is seen in Paul's word on the ship. Paul believes. He takes God at his word and he has faith in God's word. He has faith in what God said, enough faith to get up and say, this is what God has said. And that's sort of where it begins. You might say, well, Peter, this being a believer with signs following. Well, I want to look at how Paul did it. First of all, it's taking faith in God's word. First of all, it's actually being bold enough to declare his word. To declare his word that Jesus is a healer. To declare his word that if a serpent bites me, as a believer, it won't kill me. This thing that's come against me, as a believer, it won't kill me. This trouble in my family, this financial problem, this sickness, this split, this trouble at work, this boss who is against me, this trouble with my car, this issue that my mother has, the way I'm always left out in my family, whatever you want to describe as the attack on your life, the believer says that this won't overcome me. This won't kill me. The first thing that faith says, it believes what God has said. And Paul, first of all, he believed what God has said and he declared what God had said. I'm going to go to Rome. The angel told me that I've got to get to Rome and speak for Jesus, so I'm not dying on this boat. I'm not dying on this boat. And I asked God for all of you, so he said you could all live as well. The angel came to tell me that God was not going to let me die. But you know what? The rest could have died and Peter and Paul alone could have floated to the shore. Because I'm not going to die because I've got a purpose. This isn't going to kill me. This storm is not going to kill me because I've got a call from God. I've got a purpose. There's still more life to be done. This isn't happening. The first thing is faith speaks that word. So first of all, we've got to believe that. We've got to believe that the serpent bite, that the poison isn't going to kill us. We've got to be people that believe that word. Paul believed that word. Maybe Peter and Paul, when they were delivered from prison, believed that they weren't going to die in that prison. Maybe they believed they weren't going to die in that prison. I wasn't there with James. Maybe James wasn't sure. Maybe James was afraid and he died in the prison. We don't know, do we? He died for God. I'm not dishonouring James in any way, but maybe James wasn't meant to. Maybe he was. It certainly looks like Stephen's death was a catalyst for the gospel to go out. Stephen had a bit of a Jesse Rano vision. He looked up into heaven and saw Jesus standing up for him. It was like, gee, this kind of was his time. Jesus didn't prevent it, but he actually stood. I don't know if you know that story, but it says Stephen looked up into heaven and he calls out, I can see Jesus standing at the right hand of God. I still remember clearly that lecture in Bible college many years ago with old missionary Florence Munro saying, do you realise Jesus stood up for Stephen? to welcome him home. Because Jesus is seated at the right hand of God, but he stood for Stephen. So it's like, wow, that death was like, almost a kind of like, whether it's supposed to happen, but it was happening and something massive spiritual was happening. And we actually know from there the Christians spread and the gospel spread as a result of that death. But Peter and Paul, they were put in prison to do the same thing to them, but it didn't happen. They believed God's word. First of all, we've got to believe what he says. So first of all, we've got to be speaking those words of faith. We just got to start speaking them. We say, well, I can't speak them because I worry and I'm not sure and I'm full. Well, just start speaking them. Just start speaking them. Speak those words of faith. Declare them. Declare them against your own thoughts. Declare them against the voice of the evil one. Paul didn't keep it to himself, did he? Paul didn't say, oh, well, I've had a dream that none of us will die. Let's see if nobody dies. Let's see if this vision comes true. Because then if some of them die, I won't tell the others that survived that I had a dream that no one would die, because some people died. So I'll keep it to myself. I'll keep that word to myself. I'll keep that promise to myself. Not even willing to declare it maybe in the workplace. Not declare it in front of your unbelieving family. Not to say, no, this is what the Bible says and this is not going to happen. This is what the word says and this is not going to happen. And I know some of you have rhema words, specific words. This word's been spoken over my life and I believe this is going to come to pass. And this hindrance, this storm that seems to be wanting to destroy that plan is not going to destroy that plan because God has spoken. Paul gets up in front of all those guys on the boat and basically says, none of you are going to die. I'm telling you, God's told me an angel's come and none of you are going to die. It's pretty bold. We're in the middle of a storm. We got nowhere that we're pretty much expecting to die. And he doesn't get up and say, I'm not going to die. I don't know about the rest of you. I don't know, God said it, the rest of you won't, so let's hope that's true. I hope I got it right. I hope I heard correctly. I hope God's word might work this time. He just gets up and he holds it. That's faith in that word, yeah? That's faith in that word. And then the second thing Corinthians says, faith, then hope. Hope is like you actually now act upon your faith. You believe upon your faith. You actually follow it through. For that, he then got them to steer the ship and actually deliberately run the ship aground. And he said, by running the ship aground, we will all survive. Mind you, that they got it in there and then the ship started to break up. And then they said, okay, we're all going to jump in the water. And still everybody survived. And hope was in that when that serpent bit him on the hand. What did he do? He shook it off. He threw it away. Now, I imagine that people started saying, you're going to die. The natives are saying that that's poisonous. The natives are saying you can't survive that bite. Your hand's going to swell soon. You're going to get the sweat. You're going to start to pass out. You're about to be dizzy. You're like, really? Is that going to happen to me? I mean, we'd start to believe it, wouldn't we? We'd start to receive what they're telling us. We'd be asking people to bite it and suck it. Doesn't say that anybody bit it and tried to suck the poison out. Doesn't seem like anything was done. He just shook it off and threw it into the fire and sat down and got warm. And nothing happened to him. Hope. Paul's hope. That's the action. Shake it off. Shake it off and believe. That's the action. Shake it off. Walk away from it. Leave it behind. Let it go. As the song says. Truly let it go. And don't have to be frozen. You can be warm. We all like that song. Sometimes we play it and we just think, oh, let it go. Yeah, well, let it go. But you know what? In Jesus, you really can let it go. You know, that song's almost written from a cry of, we live in a society where people do feel that they're carrying around these burdens, yeah? And it appeals that they want to let it go. It's kind of sad it appeals to little kids. They probably feel the burdens too. These days, they've got everybody arguing over what they should or shouldn't think. They're probably saying, let it go. Just let me be. Let it go. Everyone wants to let it go, but without Jesus, I don't know how you let it go. Because the poison of that serpent, the poison of that divorce, the poison of that disappointment, the poison of that failure, the poison of those words, the poison of what's been said over your life, the poison of that rejection of your father or your mother, whatever that poison is, of that abuse, of that sexual abuse, of the worst things in life, the poison of it, how do you let it go? I don't know how you let it go without Jesus. A therapist will try to teach you how to live with it. Jesus says it will bite you, but it won't affect you. Nothing will happen to you. And that's hope. Hope just says, poof, I'm letting it go. I'm now going to act as if it didn't happen. I'm now going to walk as if it didn't happen. I'm going to walk in life. I'm not going to live as a person that's had this bite or has had this person put in their life, this poison, put in their life. I'm not going to live as someone who's had this poison put in their life. I'm going to live as if it didn't happen. Paul just sat down as if he wasn't bitten by a viper that's venom kills people in a short period of time. Beginning with swelling of the hand or the place where you were bitten. That didn't even happen. It wasn't like, gee, it swole, but it didn't kill him. He got a fever. Oh, he survived the night. What a miracle. Nothing happened. It didn't affect him at all. It didn't affect him at all. He was able to go on and live without the poison of that destroying him and harming him. I don't know whether he had a couple little bites in his hand. Said, see, little bites, a little bit tender where he punctured me like a little nail, but nothing happened. The poison didn't happen. It did not destroy him. Faith, hope and love. And it seems that once those two, they go together. Faith, hope and love, and the greatest of these is love. And I think that's when we're really free to love people. Because you know what the problem is with loving the way that Jesus loved the disciples is we kind of got to protect ourselves. To really let it go, to really love, to truly love that person with expecting nothing in return. To truly love and not have any demands on the other side. To just let that love flow. To truly love as God loves and to manifest the love of God to someone else. We generally have conditions. It begins with marriage. There's some sort of condition, some sort of expectation from the other person. And certainly there's relationships require time and effort. You can't sort of have a relationship if you're not with somebody. And that includes God. So the idea that God loves us unconditionally and you don't need to come to church for the rest of your life, ever pray or talk to him and he'll be there with his arms open when you finish, that's not a relationship. A relationship is a relationship. You relate, you spend time. God's not going to know us if we haven't spent time with him. And a marriage requires time and effort, requires commitment. But you're free, you're truly free when you have faith, hope and love in God, that you don't actually have to go into that thinking, you have to make me. You have to fix me. This job has to fix me. This ministry has to fix me. This friendship needs to fix me. This baby needs to love me so I feel better about myself. My husband, my wife need to do this for me. You know what? No, when faith and hope is in God, you don't put that requirement. You don't need to put that requirement on anybody else. And you're actually really free to love them. As Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. He said, I didn't love you to get anything from you. I just loved you and I just forgave you and I just did whatever the relationship required. I loved you. Sometimes that was being firm. Sometimes that was rebuking them. Sometimes that was resisting their lack of faith or their lack of hope. But he loved them. He loved them. And he was free to love them because he actually says in John 10, I do what I do for the Father. I do what I do because I love the Father. I do what I do because of this relationship, not for this relationship. I love you because he loves me. I love you because I love him. And I love you. I generally care about you because he cares about me and I care about it. This is all coming from this. And that's what the Lord wants from us. The greatest sign is that we love one another. The greatest sign is that we love one another. But I'm coming to see as the years go by that without faith and hope, that love is never really free to flow. And faith and hope comes from beginning to take Jesus' words and believe those words and hold those words and realize as you start to declare those words that they really are for you. You kind of experience God's love as those words become true in your life. And you're free to walk out in hope and walk out upon those words and step out on those words. And so when he says, for those who believe in me, these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they'll cast out demons. They will speak with new tongues. They will take up serpents, and if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. He's saying this is the sign of those who believe in me. This is the sign of those who truly trust in me. This is the type of thing that's happening in their life. They're unaffected by the bites of the serpent. They're unaffected by the poison, and they have this supernatural effect on those around them with healings and signs and wonders and bad spirits coming out of people. This is the effect they have on others. This is Christianity. This is being a Christian. This is what it means to believe. Yes, we say, become a Christian and you'll find peace and you'll find joy. Of course, you're connecting with your Creator. But this is what it means to believe. Not just have a happy wife and a nice life. Well, of course you would have a happy wife and a nice life if you're living like this. That's definitely part of it, and there's promises in the Bible towards all of that. But Jesus said, this is the signs. These signs will follow those who believe in me, who trust in me. This will become part. This is when we know we're truly trusting him. And trusting him is a challenge. I don't say this to condemn, this is a challenge. And you can have it great for 6 months in your life, and then some trouble comes, and now that whole trust gets challenged again. Something doesn't happen, and that whole trust gets challenged again. It's something that the devil goes after. It's something that the world doesn't like. They don't like to hear. They don't want us to trust in God. But he's asking us to trust in him. And if we will trust in him and put our faith in him and our hope in him and our love is from him, then these signs will follow those who have this experience. Friend, if you say, I believe in Jesus, you want to say to people at work, I believe in Jesus, these signs will follow. These signs will follow those who believe. Yeah, as a group, you can say, well, this is what happens. We believe at our church and this is what happens. These signs will follow those that believe. But there will be times when you need this personally because you have been bitten, because poison has come, and it's really going to stand out that you believe. It's really going to stand out that you believe when you can cope with that bite. When you overcome, when that bite does not hurt you, when that poison does not harm you, that's going to be a great witness. Why did Jesus say this? Because that's what's going to happen. Those who believe in him are going to be bitten. Those who believe in him are going to be poisoned because they live in the world. But when they are, it will not affect them. It will by no means hurt them. It will by no means hurt them. I don't know if you run around saying, God, why have I been bitten? Why has this poison come? Again, well, Jesus said, in this world you'll have trouble. So don't be complaining about or questioning the trouble. That's the next life. That's the next life. I don't know if you're looking for that rest down here, but the Bible tells us, St. Paul tells us that we enter our rest. There's a rest to come. But between here and the rest, there will be trouble. Those who believe in me will be bitten by snakes and they will be poisoned. Stuff will come against them, but it will by no means hurt them. And in the middle of it, they will be blessing others. They will be healing others. They'll be setting others free. Signs and wonders will follow them. Signs and wonders will follow them. That's what it means to believe. We're looking at the book of Acts. I want you to look at the book of Acts and ask, well, Lord, what does it mean for me to believe? Well, I'm telling you, that's what it means for you and I to believe. And that's all Paul knew, and that's what he went and did. And he went, viper. Well, I'm going to Rome. And Jesus said, that won't hurt me, so I'll be fine. We don't know, do we? We don't know what he thought. We don't know whether he sat down and thought, I'm going to speak faith, but there's a lot of gurgling going on in here right now. We don't know if he worried inside, but he didn't speak it, did he? He didn't yell out, get the doctor. He didn't say, get me a knife, quick, suck, or whatever. He didn't react that way, did he? Because he just sat there and they watched him. And I guess he knew, here's a sign. This serpent has grabbed me, as Jesus said, right in front of these people that have no idea about the gospel. That's why they said, you must be a god. And that was his chance to say, I'm not God, but he does live in me and he can live in you. Hallelujah. What an opportunity. What a sign to those who didn't know anything about the Lord. You know, some of us are praying for people to come to Christ. They need a sign. Maybe that sign's going to come through you. Maybe that sign could already be there, but they've watched you get bitten and poisoned and think, well, you go down like the rest of us. Those Christians just go down like the rest of us. And we say, well, we're human and it's natural, but I'm sorry, no. Those who believe, they won't go down. It will by no means hurt them. We won't go down like the rest of them. Now, maybe we have. Well, we can say, I'm a failure. I went to church and I've gone down and now I feel bad. Well, that wasn't the purpose of the message. The purpose of the message is to say, let's lay hold of what Jesus says. It was always going to be a challenge. Jesus went hard at it for 3 years. He turned around to the disciples and said, you'll do greater things, because he knew they were going to have to go at it for longer than him. For many years. Many years. And we see Paul, this same very man. He had his ups and downs, but he just kept going. He said, but I get up again. He goes, I'm beaten and I'm this and I'm that, but I get up and I go again. I just get up and I go again. Friend, let's get up and go again. Let's be believers with signs following. Let's be believers with signs following. And let's lay hold of that faith that causes that signs. And let's just begin by speaking it. Let's begin by speaking it. You begin to speak it, then the Holy Spirit will start to tell you how to act on it. But while you're not talking it, why would he tell you to act on it? Why would he tell you how to act on this if you're not speaking it? And you're not claiming, you're not believing it? Even about what has already bitten you. If you talk about how it's poisoned you, how can the Holy Spirit help you overcome it? You need to say how it can't poison me. And then he'll tell you what to do now. He'll tell you the next step. He'll tell you the walk of hope that I honestly believe will bring love into your life and love into other people's lives. And they will then know that really you are Jesus' disciple. You are a believer.
If you have been blessed by this message, please visit our website neilthomasministries.com and click on the donate button.